Hello and welcome everyone to the June APQC Knowledge Management webinar. We're very excited today to have a topic probably near and dear to everyone's heart. And today's title of our presentation is Knowledge Revolution with Generative AI, Megatrends and Success Stories. And we have a guest speaker. So in just a second, I will introduce our speaker, but I also want to say happy Juneteenth to everyone today. And for those of you who are off for the holiday but still joining us, love that. If you're not here today because of the holiday, I hope you're enjoying your day off and you get to enjoy the recording a little bit later. So welcome, everyone. I am Linda Broxick, and I'm the research lead for knowledge management here at APQC. And I'm very excited to have Evan Siegel join us today, who's the Vice President of Financial Services and Business Development with the egain Corporation. And if you were able to attend our conference earlier this year and able to see Evan, he's got a great story and a great just message around generative AI. So I hope it really helps people understand if you're in the learning phase or if you're going a little bit further, he's going to have some really cool tips, tricks, and what's happening in the industry as it relates to AI. So before we get started, just want to do a couple of reminders using our research as to why we're here even talking about generative AI today. Then we're going to turn it over for the majority of the time to our guest, Evan. And then at the very end, we'll wrap it up with a reminder of some of our upcoming events and resources that you all have available to you from APQC. Just as another reminder, you will receive a copy of the slides from today, as well as a recording of the webinar. Within about 48 hours, you'll receive an email. We ask that you fill out the survey as well and let us know how you like the webinar today and give us some feedback. It's always very helpful. But this information will also be posted on our resource library at apqc.org. So you can access it there later as well. So just to get us started, I'm just going to share just a couple of reminders of some of the research that we did a few months ago. And in our top priorities for knowledge management teams in 2024, as you can imagine, one of the top areas that our knowledge management professionals are focusing on is incorporating AI, generative AI, or smart technology in general. So it is very top of mind for all of us as practitioners and leaders of knowledge management. We also have, here's a look at some of the top drivers for why we're using technology to support knowledge management. So those things around improving how we share and collaborate together, productivity, reducing that risk of knowledge loss, remote workers, enabling decision-making, all of those things that we think about. It's really, really powerful for knowledge management to be able to leverage technology, and now specifically generative AI. And finally, when we ask people how involved they are with the decision-making in the digital strategy area in their organizations, we see that 70% of the people who responded to our survey told us that they're at least moderately involved. So they're at least partnering and supporting, with about 35% of people actually very involved and becoming decision makers within their organizations as it relates to the IT that supports knowledge management. So great news, and I'm sure you're all just really excited to get started and hear from Evan today. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Evan, and teach us all the things generative AI.
Well, thanks a lot for that introduction, Linda. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. So let me tell you a little bit about my background, because it grounds a lot of the comments I'll make. So prior to joining egain, like a lot of you, I had an operate role. I spent 16 years in the financial services industry. I was at one of the US mega banks, and I had two primary roles there, which really gave me appreciation for the difficulty of moving the needle and the difficulty of improving the customer experience. So I led a strategy team, a customer experience strategy team that worked across the entire bank. This was a mega bank, so we actually touched 70 million customers, and I really had an appreciation for how difficult it is to eliminate pain points at that scale. And then from that role, I moved to the leadership team of our retail bank contact center. And because it's a mega bank, everything was supersized. So that contact center had 10,000 agents. And part of my role was I got special projects, and I was tasked with moving the needle on things like handle time and first contact resolution. And the tools at my disposal were coaching, training, and pizza parties, because the conventional wisdom is that contact centers are run on pizza parties. I'm here to tell you that those levers are fairly weak and ineffective. We were able to reduce handle time by 1 or 2 percentage points, improve first contact resolution by a couple percentage points. And then in my quest to sort of dramatically move the needle, I came across knowledge management as a technology. I saw the potential. I saw how it solved the problems that my organization was struggling with. So I jumped ship because I was tired of beating my head against a wall trying to move the needle with my limited levers. And so hence I joined egain and our best of breed knowledge management solution. So what I'll be talking about today, you can see the agenda. Going to go give you a little bit of an intro to egain, and then go through the promise and the perils of knowledge management and show you, the promise and the perils of generative AI, then show you how knowledge management is the perfect solution to kind of realize the potential of generative AI and minimize those perils. But I'm going to use a quote to really sort of set the true message here. So I live in Silicon Valley, and I have a number of friends who work at NVIDIA. And a couple of months ago, I heard through my friends that the CEO there had a really impactful insight. You know, in the headlines, everyone is worried, and there's a lot of chatter about, will generative AI take my job? And what the CEO of NVIDIA said was, you know, it's not that generative AI is going to take your job. It's that someone who knows how to use generative AI better than you will take your job. And of course, there's a corollary to that. The corollary is organizations, companies that know how to use generative AI will eat the lunch of those that don't. And the second corollary is, and this is sort of the what's in it for you to listen to today's talk, is, you know, generative AI is a transformative technology. It's my belief that those that know how to help their organizations get on the early edge of leveraging generative AI will have their careers made. And I believe, and I'll explain to you how knowledge management is that critical success factor that will allow careers to be made. And I know a lot of you are sort of in process improvement and knowledge management roles, so you're perfectly positioned to grab that mantle and have your career made. So a little bit about egain. We've been around for 25 years. We only do knowledge management. That's our core competency, supported by conversational technologies and analytics. We focus primarily in industries that are regulated, complex, or have fast growth. You can see those industries there. And we're proud to say, we're proud to say that we have a lot of sort of compliance, privacy, and security standards that are top-notch, including we're FedRAMP certified for those of you in the government sector. Our core competency, what we do, our value proposition is pretty simple. We help via our knowledge hub the right answers, find the right person at the right time in the right channel. And then feathered into that, we orchestrate sort of an ensemble of technologies, generative AI, reasoning, machine learning, and analytics to support and deliver that value prop in an ever better way. So that's sort of the gold semicircle in the middle of this page. On the outer ring is what we call our conversation hub. It is a collection of technologies that pretty much support every way that organizations today interact with their team members and their organizations. Our technology comes with that, but we also have a composable architecture, which means if an organization already has, let's say, a chatbot or an email technology, they can leverage egain's knowledge hub as a central source of truth for their organizations, and our composable architecture allows us to connect up with their existing solution and feed it with the same knowledge that, let's say, your agents have or that is used across the enterprise. Finally, on the base of this page is the technologies that we have out-of-the-box connections with, and it's all the major telephony, CRM systems, and other systems which make it easy for our clients to quickly integrate and implement our solution and integrate with their key CRM, telephony, and other technologies. We're proud of what we've created, and it's not just us that recognize our leading capabilities. The experts do as well. Both Gartner and Forrester acknowledge that egain is the leader in the knowledge management space. Gartner also does something that's pretty cool. They have a peer insight customer review process. They vet and verify that everyone completing a review is actually a client of that company. We're the #1 in our space with a 4.8 out of 5-star rating from our customers. And we're very proud to say that everyone that completed a peer insight is happy to recommend us within their industry. Finally, KM World, which is a specialized publication for knowledge managers, in 2023 awarded us their KM Promise Award, along with our client Liberty Mutual, for realizing the potential and the promise of knowledge management.
Hey, Evan, we have a question. People were wondering if your solution's been used in pharma or any med device organizations yet. So maybe you're going to touch on that.
Yeah, we do. We cut across most industries. We have a pharmaceutical and medical device clients and prospects. Actually, the one where I'm personally involved with. So the use case there is very strong because there's a lot of complexity. It sort of fits the model, right? A lot of complexity, a lot of regulation. So it's certainly within our sweet spot. As you can see here, some of our healthcare and insurance providers, which are corollaries of what was asked about. We also have leading brands in financial services, retail, telco, federal government, and state. 200 global brands in total, many of which have been with us for years. So let's now move on to, I think, why a lot of you joined, which is the promise and the perils of generative AI and how knowledge management is critical to unlocking the promise of generative AI. So, generative AI, ChatGPT has broken all kinds of records. Here, what we're showing is the time it took to reach 100 million users in 2 months, blowing away the previous record holder, TikTok. So why is that? Why has generative AI kind of lit up the records and gotten such fast adoption? One, I will argue that it's because it's human-like and easy to use. So let's think about it. Let's break that down a little bit. When you use it, you can use simple English sentences, right? You don't need to know any coding language. You just tap in an English sentence to guide it and get back your answers. And it's human-like. And it's not just me saying that. An organization administered the Turing test, which sort of asks people to interact with a technology and ask whether it's human or not. And 70% of the people said ChatGPT was human. And so why is that? Well, one is first thing, you can interact with it in English, which I already said. Second thing is you ask it the same question slightly differently, you'll get different answers. That's very human-like. And thirdly, like humans, sometimes it just makes stuff up. They gave it the fancy name of hallucinations. And so because it's easy to use and human-like, people love it. And let's face it, it's very powerful, right? It can come up with calculations, insightful answers, synthesized from the broad array that is the internet. And it's not just the end users that are recognizing the power of generative AI. The C-suite is as well. And by the way, this is something that's changed pretty dramatically. I give talks at conferences pretty often, and about 5 or 6 months ago, I would ask when I was giving a talk, how many of you are using generative AI? And how many of you have a moratorium on using generative AI? 5, 6 months ago, the majority were in the moratorium. There's risk associated with generative AI, but now the momentum has flipped, and everyone is now sort of moving forward to try to realize the potential of generative AI. 80% of executives report a focus area in generative AI as an investment priority. 55% of executives report that their organization is piloting a generative AI solution. And some 47% report that their generative AI initiatives are focusing on customer-facing functions. The Wall Street Journal recently had an article that said the hottest job in corporate America is the chief AI officer. So that sort of hype and excitement around generative AI has clearly made it to corporate America, and people are moving rapidly. But it's not risk-free. So let's kind of explore, spend a few seconds on what are the perils of generative AI. So what we have here is a chart from Gartner. It talks about the typical cycle that most technologies go through, the adoption cycle. And what's important here, less so than the little dots and the titles on it, are two things. One is the shape of the curve, and the second is the segments of the chart. So on the x-axis, you have time. On the y-axis, you have expectations. And what you'll notice is generative AI there at the yellow is right at the peak of the inflated expectations segment, right? People think it's going to solve world hunger. But notice what happens after the peak of inflated expectations. It's the trough of disillusionment, because no technology, no matter how good, can live up to the inflated expectations that have been attached to something like generative AI. And then what follows after the trough of disillusionment, where the technology just doesn't deliver like expected. By the way, you're starting to already see those articles in the press of companies pulling back a little bit because they're not getting the results that they thought. But then you have the slope of enlightenment, where typically technologies, people make the incremental improvements, they have the right use cases, the technology gets a little better, and ultimately you get the benefits that you expect from the technology. So one key point is we are right now at peak hype for generative AI. But there's other risks. One is that the IP and brand risk is high and terrifying. There's a story that kind of really drives this home. Air Canada used generative AI for one of their bots. They had a passenger interact with that bot, trying to get a discounted rate to attend the funeral of a loved one. And ultimately, the answer the bot gave was not a correct answer. And then when the customer tried to dispute it, they had a terrible experience. And because what was behind this story was generative AI, it went viral. And Air Canada looked bad. So the potential, if something bad happens, is high. And the IP risk part is interesting too, right? Generative AI, the models, the large language models, learn based on the data they're exposed to. So if you expose your company's intellectual property to a generative AI large language model, there's the risk that it's going to use that to learn and therefore take some of your intellectual property. The second risk is that the technology transparency is low. I don't know the exact number, but for each large language model, there's only a handful of people, likely less than 10, that truly understand how the technology works. And so when you talk to your IT folks and your compliance folks, there is a hesitancy to rely on a technology that they don't understand, because who knows how it will guide your team members and your customers. Thirdly, this is the Wild West of business. Rules and regulations are non-existent. So a great example of that is, there's a lawsuit out there. The New York Times is suing ChatGPT, saying that ChatGPT is using the New York Times copyrighted IP to train itself, and the New York Times is not being compensated for that. If that case breaks in favor of the New York Times, who knows the implications on ChatGPT? Would it need to get shut down? Would it dramatically change its algorithms? And if a company has built solely its reliance on a large language model that gets negatively impacted by a lawsuit, who knows the implications of that and the implication of that on your business when you've built a key process around the generative AI. So lots of risks. This is just a few of them, but these are significant risks. So I'm going to explain how knowledge management can really be the perfect partner of generative AI to minimize these perils and really deliver the maximum potential. And there is a lot of potential of generative AI. So the best use cases for generative AI focus on both the customer experience and the agent experience, the employee experience. So for the agent, what it can do when deployed well is deliver trusted and consumable answers to both team members and customers. It can help draft a response to a customer that a team member or agent uses. That'll save that team member time. It'll make those responses better. And it can even, after a call, do issue categorization and call summary. Big time savers that also deliver operational efficiencies. The knowledge author for organizations is a great use case for knowledge management. And I'll show you this with examples, but it's a great way to draft content, enhance existing content, improve articles. And then finally, there's an analysis piece of generative AI that'll allow you to sort of drive that necessary continuous improvement to get more out of the generative AI response. What are the experts saying about the potential for generative AI to transform your business operations? The data on the left comes from the McKinsey Institute, from the big consulting firm. This is a group within McKinsey that is sort of future thinkers, uses big data and expertise to predict what's on the horizon. What they're saying is that the potential reduction of service costs from generative AI is anywhere between 30 to 45% in the next 5 years. If you think about that, whatever your organization is spending broadly on customer service, with the proper use of generative AI, you can reduce that cost by 30 to 45%. That's the potential here. Then, on the knowledge management piece, by the way, which supports that goal, but the knowledge curation, the knowledge creation part, egain actually has live examples with clients, early adopters of our technology, where we can reduce the life cycle to create, manage, and curate knowledge by anywhere from 60 to 80%. So dramatic operational improvement potential. And what's needed to sort of realize these generative AI benefits is a modern knowledge hub. Why is that? Well, first of all, what the core deliverable of a knowledge hub is for an organization is trusted content. Generative AI is powerful. If you have sort of garbage in, the garbage out is only amplified. So a key deliverable of a great knowledge management system is to make sure your content is trusted, to put in controls and governance to make sure you're properly using the generative AI. And I'll show you those because they're really cool when you get down, peel the onion and get to the layers of detail. And then also process orchestration. That sort of cuts two ways. A great knowledge management system walks either the customer or the team member through step by step what they need to do to get a question answered or resolve an issue. And process orchestration is around the knowledge creation, where what we argue, what we at egain argue is necessary when you use generative AI is to have a human in the loop. You can't totally take the human out. And so a good example of that is when you use generative AI to draft up new knowledge, new policies, new procedures. We have a workflow, a knowledge management approval workflow where what's been created by the generative AI is routed to subject matter experts, compliance folks, legal, to make sure that what was created by the generative AI meets all the needs of the organizations and is compliant and best of breed. So, in conclusion, without a robust knowledge management as a foundation, generative AI remains a prototype. Without generative AI, knowledge management struggles with building and maintaining knowledge in a fast-changing operation. So let me show you now the power duo in action and explain with some examples and use cases of how knowledge management is the perfect complement to generative AI. So there's a lot on this page. Basically, what it is a simplified overview of the egain architecture that we've been building over the last 25 years. And what's needed to really get the most out of generative AI is you need to have content, controls, and reporting. And so what you'll see is you kind of scan across the boxes here of our capability. You see that sort of curated content, ways to generate content, to get the workflows, to get it approved. You have technologies around the best search engine, around the taxonomy, all these pieces. And then you see how we've sort of plugged in GPT to complement what's already there. We also have the sort of the analytics and the on the bottom there to help improve the overall function of the generative AI. So Linda, I just want to check, just of course, at the worst time possible, a wood chipper is started up outside my door. Is that just creating background noise?
Just barely. So we can just barely. I heard a little bit of a hum and I wasn't sure what it was, but maybe before you go, we do have one question sitting here in the Q&A if you might want to answer it before you jump into. Is that okay? So the question is, OpenAI leadership has recently made it public that they do not know exactly how AI works due to the calculations within the hidden layers of the models. How do the 10 individuals know how the model calculates results?
So that's sort of the question. Inherent in the question is the risk that is there. I can't answer that because who knows what those 10 individuals know. They're not talking. At least I haven't seen the specifics. And so what I'm going to show you is the controls that a knowledge management layer can put on around confidence of the response, about what you show, when you show, that allow you to limit the risk of the black box that is generative AI. So stay tuned and I'll give you an example of that in a second. So what egain has done is, knowing the potential of knowledge management to help with generative AI, we launched back in April Assist GPT, which is our integration of generative AI. It's for agents, authors, and analysts. It uses generative AI in the workflow. And the cool part is we've done the hard work and the heavy lifting for organizations. We have out-of-the-box generative AI features with a best practice prompt library. By the way, quick side note, those futurists out there, for those of you that have kids, say that generative AI prompt engineer is going to be a hot job in the next 5 to 10 years. But we've done the first pass of that, and we've done the best practice prompts, and I'll show you some of those. We've also got the analytics to help measure, manage, and optimize AI, and of course, APIs to integrate in where we need to systems and solutions that you already have in place in your organization. So let's start digging in and showing you some of these capabilities that come with egain's Assist GPT. So the first one is for knowledge management authors. And by the way, when I'm out there in the field talking to our clients and our prospects, one of the top pain points I hear from organizations is our knowledge is out of date, it's stale, it's hard to consume, and we can't keep up in creating knowledge fast enough. Our business is changing, the regulations are changing, we're launching new projects, and our knowledge organization can't keep up. Well, this is exactly a great use case for generative AI. So when you see here, the built-in prompts that we have with our Assist GPT, the ones I like, my favorites are, make it shorter, make it longer, improve the writing, write an article. So the prompts exist, they're optimized and tuned to do exactly what's best. And then we also give actionable insights to the authors as they execute and use the prompts. So on the next page, I'm going to ask Thalen if you could, we have an embedded video. You can actually see here we're improving an article. So what we're doing is we're taking this very long article, we're clicking the little 2 diamonds, which are the generative AI icon for egain. And what you'll notice happens is, what's a best practice for a knowledge article? It's short, it has subheadings, where a table will really help convey information. A table is created, and it's written in a dynamic voice. And so you can see that took about 10 seconds, and we've improved that article. But the job's not done there. with egain, with a best-of-breed knowledge management system, what will then happen from there is the human in the loop step, where it'll get routed to the subject matter experts, to the knowledge team manager, and whoever else an organization identifies to make sure that the knowledge article meets the needs of the organization. But a powerful step, right, to rewrite it aligning with best practices. Next up is improving in our, wait, did we just do that? Let me go back a sec. We did this, go forward. Nope. Sorry, there we go. So now we're going to do drafting an article. So I think you can get this one going. So here, again, the pain point for organizations is we can't keep up with the pace of change of knowledge creation. So all you need to do is put in a title, key points you want to have for that knowledge article, and let the rest be done by the large language model. So it will aligning with the improvement best practices, subheadings where needed, good dynamic English, simple, easy to consume. So again, you can see done in a matter of seconds, what might take a human an hour or two to complete. The other flavor of generative AI is providing easy to find, easy to consume answers to questions. So we've created a capability called instant answers. And what you'll notice, this one's for agents, but by the way, this capability works perfectly as well. Customer facing in either a chatbot or in a portal, a search part of a digital portal. But here, this is an agent use case, but you'll get the flavor for it. So what you notice about this question, which is a very common phenomena, it's a multi-threaded question. That means there's multiple questions in one sentence. That's a great use case for generative AI. So what you see here in the instant answer that comes back is a synthesized, pithy, to the point answer to that two-part question. And then to really support the agent or the customer is the references to the source documents that were needed to answer that question. So if the team member or the customer wants to dig a little deeper, they can go ahead and click on those references and they'll be taken to the source document for that instant answer. But the beauty of this is it really solves that pain point that we hear a lot from agents and customers, which is your data, your information is not consumable. I have to read too much to get the answer to my question. Here, in just a matter of 3 lines, I get a pithy answer to a two-part question. When I was on the contact center leadership team, there were 2 other pain points we dealt with. The call wrap, it was always, which is the summary of the issue that was dealt with. It was always inaccurate and it took too long to generate. Great use case for generative AI. You can convert the text that's running in the background from that call and make a short little summary, a generated summary of what was the call. Likewise, the generative AI can easily suss out what are the key issues that were discussed and create a classification of the issue or issues dealt with, solving that age-old problem that contact centers have is of what is my team actually dealing with? What are the top issues? So I could go ahead and do root cause analysis and solve them. Without this type of technology, you rely on primarily agents to do the classification. And as we all know, there is yet to be built a great self-agent driven issue classification model that doesn't create garbage in. Finally, we talk about analytics. We've created, as part of our Assist GPT, specific metrics that allow you to drive down that path of the continuous improvement of knowledge management and generative AI. So here where you can see our top search phrases, that's in the lower left-hand corner, and the confidence threshold. You can see there's another chart that's one of my personal favorites that's not displayed, but I'll describe it, which is when a generative AI prompt is used, how often is the content taken as is and put into a response or used as a response for a customer? Because that allows you to know, is that prompt working well? So lots and lots of metrics and analytics to help you. Here's that one, actually. I forgot that was in here. So here, which prompt has the highest degree of regeneration rates, which means that's sort of the low quality threshold. That means that the person used a prompt, it didn't give them what they want, so they go in and do a second prompt. In the yellow here on the bottom, which prompt had the highest insert rate? That is where a prompt was actually just the reply back was cut and pasted into a response or delivered to a customer. So metrics that allow you to know and measure and improve upon the prompt effectiveness of your generative AI solution. So the next thing, which kind of gets at the question that was asked a little while ago, which is around controls, right? There's a lot of unknowns around generative AI. And so what we've done with our Assist GPT solution is put a bunch of controls in there. So let me kind of walk through a few of these. One is, at number one there, turn generative AI on and off at the tenant level, which means you can do it for a business line, a line of business, a channel. You can sort of say, hey, for our high net worth, I'm a bank, for our high net worth clients, we really want to give them the white glove treatment. We don't want them to get anything risky or wrong. Let's not have generative AI as an option. It's a switch you flip for them for any sort of configuration of groups you have. Next one is similar, turn it off at the portal level. Portals are individual web pages. You can have web pages for your team members, for certain team members, for certain customer segments. Again, you can try to determine who gets generative AI and who doesn't. Another one is number 3, disallow generative AI from replacing content of specific articles. So let's say, I'll use the banking example again, because I'm a former banker. Let's say there's a knowledge article that deals with a really, really regulated piece of the banking business. And that needs to be delivered incredibly precisely, because if it's slightly off, you violate the regulation. Well, what you can do in that case is just click a switch and say, for this article, generative AI can't touch it. It can only be delivered as is. So again, that mitigates that risk of generative AI may take a liberty with something that'll expose you to compliance, regulatory, or legal risk. Another one, which is a favorite of mine, is you can adjust the generated content confidence threshold. So large language models, when they create generated content, send along with that generated content a confidence score, high, medium, low. How confident is the large language model that it got it right? Well, you as an organization, when you use egain's Assist GPT, can set high, medium, low, which means you'll only accept answers and will only show answers to your team members or customers that have a high confidence return score, medium, low, etc. So it allows you to set your level of confidence that you're willing to display to team members and agents. And then the last one I want to highlight is number 7. It's kind of a cool one. There's something called the temperature of a generative AI response. So you can adjust that. How creative are you going to allow the generative AI to be in its response? What we're seeing with our clients, most people start with, we don't want too much creativity. And then as we get comfortable with it, as we use the analytics, we see the response, then we might loosen that control. But again, it's all at your fingertips to mitigate the risks that you might have with generative AI via these controls. Next one is around prompt management and composability. So we have capabilities to sort of create your own prompts, support capabilities to make sure those are as business as enabled or not enabled, supported with macros, etc. And as I mentioned earlier, we also have a composable architecture, which allows you to bring your own technologies, which includes bots and your own large language model. And by the way, one other control that we have, which gets back to the IP risk, is whenever we use any large language model, we do not enable them to learn off of that content that your organization has. So that sort of mitigates one of the flavors of IP risk, in that the large language models won't learn off of your intellectual property, because we block the learning via contracts as well as technology steps. All right. So this is not just philosophical and theoretical examples. We actually do have clients getting some pretty cool results using our Assist GPT capability. You can see here what the clients are. Yep, yeah, Linda.
Hey, before you move on to this part,
Yep.
we do have a question if you want to take a look at it before you move on to your success stories. How does this solution work with Microsoft's suite of applications such as Copilot? Many large companies are heavy Microsoft groups, and teams typically have to understand what features are missing in Copilot that is available in egain. Make sense?
Yeah, so we have out-of-the-box capabilities with a lot of Microsoft's capabilities, SharePoint, Teams, and so I am not positive that we have the out-of-the-box capabilities with Copilot at this point, but it's an API-enabled solution, so we can complement it and integrate with it with relative speed. And I would love to sort of, whoever asked that question, they can follow up with me, and I'd love to hear their specific use case, and we can sort of get our technical experts on to see how we can complement how they want to use Copilot and a best-of-breed knowledge solution. But the one core thing I would say is, Copilot is a sort of a technology that sits on top of and leverages content. And if that content is not trusted, is not curated, is not highly consumable, you're not going to get the sort of the transformative results that you could if the content met those thresholds of trustworthiness, curated, easily consumable.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Evan.
So what you can see in the first comment from one of our financial services client, it's all around the knowledge piece of the use case and the benefit. And the second one from a leading European energy company, you can see their quote, but I'm going to go through that use case in more detail because it's such a great story. So ESB Networks is a client of egain's. They're interesting business. So what they do is they transport energy. They don't generate it. They don't own power plants. They're in the transmission business. They've been around since 1927. And they basically serve everyone via the transporting of electricity in the Republic of Ireland. So they have a big customer base, 2.6 million customers, and nearly 4,000 employees. And, the energy use case sort of meets that complex, highly regulated, critical sweet spot for a knowledge management solution. Electricity in this day and age is critical. You can't run your Wi-Fi without electricity. Hospitals, organizations rely on it for essential services. Due to sort of outages and storms, there's often emergencies and interruptions to service. And the organization, when that happens, given the criticality of energy delivery, they really need to sort of have excellent service. They're regulated. And the bottom line is poor service is not an option for them. So they had, prior to engaging with egain, they hired some consultants to try to look at how they can improve their customer satisfaction. And that consultant, that independent consultant, came back and said, one of the root causes, and this is actually kudos to that consultant because they really drove down to the true root cause. One of the root causes of your poor service is that your information, your knowledge is not easy to understand. So you hear a theme here. It's not easy to understand. It's not up to date. It's not trusted by your agents. So you've got to get your knowledge house in order. And again, common theme, we hear this all the time. And so they took the guidance, and what they realized was that they had a content management solution that they put in place in 2014. And over the time, what had happened was the knowledge got out of sync. It wasn't trustworthy. They didn't have a good taxonomy. It had a lot of inaccuracies in it, and they really didn't have the resources to improve it. And so therefore, they really recognized that they had to advance from a content management system to a true best-of-breed knowledge management system. So they chose egain. They recognized our feature set. They recognized that we could integrate via out of the box in our API structure we could easily integrate into existing systems. They like the fact that this is all we do. We've been at this for 25 years, and that's why we built a best of breed solution. And they wanted to move quickly, given the criticality of electricity delivery and the aggressiveness of management to fix their customer satisfaction efforts. And by the way, we typically implement a new system in anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks, depending on how many knowledge articles an organization has. So we were able to meet that aggressive schedule. So what they saw after they implemented our solution was, they measured this, that a 6 times reduction in the failure to find an answer. So their agents would be getting a question, and what they found was 6 times better results, that they would get that initial answer on their first search. Of course, because that made the agent's job easier. They didn't need to worry about, like, actually, what do I do and what do I say to answer a customer's question. Lowered the stress, and so the agent satisfaction is trending up. And remember, I said that their knowledge base was kind of mucked up, to use a technical term. They had to create new content, and they found that they were able to do it 5 times faster using the generative AI capabilities with egain's Assist GPT than had they done it before. They also used I want to highlight, they also used a very innovative use of a generative AI to figure out which knowledge to go create. So what they did when they first launched the project was they used generative AI to analyze their calls over a couple-month period, and the generative AI was able to identify what are the most common call types, which they did not know, and that was where they prioritized first creating the new content. They wanted to create content, the 80-20 rule, create content that address the bulk of the calls. Only 20% of content could solve 80% of the call issues. Probably not exactly that way, but you get the concept. So interesting use of generative AI to figure out what are the top issues where you need to go write your best of breed knowledge. So they've been pretty stoked with the results they're getting, and they've gotten those results and haven't yet implemented that instant answer capability, which generates across multiple articles. So that's next up on their roadmap, journey with egain, and they're also going to start showing the knowledge base across touch points and using the single source of truth now to do self-service, which of course is a great place if you want to reduce your call volume and reduce your costs, is to allow people to self-service. So I'm going to close with, hopefully I've piqued your interest in knowledge management as a great way to deliver incredible results and to help your organization leapfrog the competition in using generative AI. But I know that sometimes getting a knowledge management project prioritized can be tricky. So we have a couple of resources to help our champions within organizations to secure the budget money necessary. One of those is we have a database that we've created based on our 25 years of experience, that if you tell us some of your core contact center metrics, FCR, number of agents, training time, handle time, etc., we can smash it against our database and give you a range of outcome that our clients have had based on where you are today, a percentage improvement, and then you can sort of use your management judgment to say, oh, this is what I think we can get given our particular situation. And at the output of that is basically the first part of an ROI analysis, which is what is the return we could get from a best of breed knowledge management system, broken down into categories such as deflection, first contact resolution, sort of the specific areas where you'll get business benefits. So we work with folks that are contemplating a knowledge management system to help them build the business case. And we have our 25 years of experience to do that. The second thing that we do is we have a proof of concept that is no cost and no obligation. So what we can do is take a number of use cases that you and we identify as being good to use in a 30-day proof of concept. We actually load that into a production level version of our system. And then your team members, possibly your customers, if you display it to them, can actually bang on the system and compare it to the current system. And it's a great way to sort of get excitement, to get a sense of how a best-of-breed knowledge management system will leapfrog your current operations and allow you to drive improvements. And a third way to use something like this POC is some executive teams that we work with, even after they see the ROI numbers, don't really get the power of a knowledge management system. But once they see it in action in a use case with their data, with their knowledge, it can be the final piece of like, show me proof point to deliver the enthusiasm to fund this type of an effort. So with that, Linda, I'll see if there are any other questions.
Yeah, it was great. We had a couple of questions and you answered a couple of them already with just your last couple of slides. So that was great with your helping people build a business case. So I think that was good information, but we still have a couple of more. So the first one is, what level of involvement does egain have in collating and curating the information that is input into the system? Or is this solely on the client from a responsibility perspective?
Yeah, so when we have a professional services organization, when we work with a prospect, we ask them, there's different levels. You can basically choose your own journey. We have some people that want our professional services to migrate most, if not all, of their knowledge. We also have, I'd say the majority of folks want us to work with them, do sort of, again, the 80-20 approach, take the 20% of knowledge articles that are most often used. We would migrate those. We would train the small team of business users that will own the egain system. This is a no-code system. Once we implement, we're out as far as the technology support. So we train them, and then that's a model that most of our folks do. And then the third thing I want to point out is we have a federated search capability. So even though a knowledge object, policy or procedure, may not be in the egain system, it might be, let's say, in your legacy SharePoint system, we can still incorporate that into the searches that your team members, your customers use via our federated search capabilities.
Nice. I like that. That's great. Thank you. We do have another question here too. What data points would you use to convince a large organization that already has dozens of taxonomies but no process taxonomy that they should adopt process taxonomy to organize their knowledge?
Yeah, well, I would love to talk to that person and see this. Having been in a former operate role, it all comes down to, is there opportunity to improve in your call deflection results, in your handle time, in your first contact resolution? That's the bottom line measure of how good is your knowledge base. So I would love to talk to that person, compare their results to our database of what our clients get, and show them how, a best of breed solution that can deliver the information, make it highly searchable, make it trusted, can really transform their business results. We're not working with our clients. I didn't talk about this in my primary comments, but we have business executives who are our clients who've been tasked with reducing their cost of customer service by 50% or more. And we're working hand in glove with those folks to deliver that kind of transformational change. And the way you do it is by improving the self-service. You're going to deflect the calls by making the information consumable, by giving process guidance to the agents. You reduce handle time, all the while maintaining or improving customer satisfaction because you're improving first contact as a resolution, reducing the handle time, et cetera, et cetera. So punchline to the answer is, it comes down to the business results. Where are they today? They should work with us to see what the art of the possible is.
Absolutely. Yeah. And everyone, you will have access to Evan's contact information. So if you have a specific question you want to go deeper on, feel free to reach out to him after this webinar as well. One more thing, Evan, if somebody is looking at bolting on a solution like this to their current content management solution, what risks do you see with an approach like that? Maybe talk through a little bit of the risks so people can understand what that feels like.
Yeah, so it gets back to, so I think what the person's asking is, let's say my CEO says, oh, just put ChatGPT on top of our current SharePoint solution, right? But let's think about what are and you know, you have to ask yourself in your organization, is all of that content up to date?
Right.
Is it easily consumable? Meaning, is it, you know, sort of follow those best practices? Are you able to keep up in creating new content with the pace of change of your organization? If the answer to any of those questions is no, you may have beautifully generated AI answers where the input is garbage. And so then your team members or your customers will be getting the wrong answers. And it's no fault of the generative AI. It's the fault of the fact that the underlying knowledge and content is not trustworthy, highly curated, and accurate.
Yes, very good. And I love that. I like that you came back to the content management piece. It's something we focused on in one of our webinars just a couple months ago to help people prepare for AI. We did some best practices on content management. So if you haven't seen that webinar or some of those materials from us at APQC, please go back and look at those as well. Those will be very helpful to you to get prepared to have a conversation with Evan about generative AI. So I think that was it for our questions. I don't think I see, let me double check and make sure. Okay, so
Let
with
me just
that,
close, Linda, with where I started, which
yeah,
is
absolutely.
this the call to action, if you will. This is an exciting time. If you're in knowledge management, if you're in process improvement, like a lot of you that are APQC members or followers, this is an exciting time to lead the charge of your organization's embrace of generative AI and in a way that will deliver dramatic business results. Those that are on the vanguard of this, I argue, will make their career. So it's a very exciting time. So hopefully that call to action gets you pumped up on this beautiful summer Wednesday.
It's beautiful in some places. We have clouds where we're at, Evan, so where I'm at anyway. So no, that was amazing. I love it. And I've seen you talk about some of your solutions before, and each time I hear it, I think I learned something new. So thank you for that. It was great. And hopefully if you all have deeper questions for Evan, you reach out to him after the fact and review the information that we're going to send to you. We're just going to close with a couple of reminders from APQC. We always give you resources at the end of our webinars, and we have some things in here around content management, and we have some things around artificial intelligence. Some of our research already started there, and you'll even see we have presentations from our conference this year, of which you will find one from Evan in there as well. So lots of resources for you to go after the fact and access. And the other thing I want to touch on, and I'm not sure, I think I lost the slide somewhere. Sorry, that we have some upcoming engagements. There we go. Upcoming engagements, we have just to keep on our topic of technology, because Evan did a great job of introducing this capability today. In our next webinar in July, we're actually going to go through some of the data from our most recent survey on emerging technologies. So we have a lot of information around what knowledge managers are saying as it relates to emerging technology for KM, specifically around AI and generative AI. So stay tuned for that. We have another webinar coming up in August where we will switch gears and talk a little bit about communities again, communities of practice. Also, we have a current survey going on right now. If you haven't taken it or seen it yet, there's a link right here, and it's on change management. And I will say that's extremely important, as this concept of generative AI is much more of a cultural transformation than it is a digital. So understanding how to manage this transformation within your organization will be extremely impactful. So please go out and take that survey. We're going to have some great upcoming research on that as well. And as always, we have some training and additional roundtables that come up in the future. So with that, I will say thank you all for joining us today. And again, if you had the day off for the Juneteenth holiday, we hope you enjoyed your day off. And we hope to see you again soon on another APQC webinar. Have a great day. Thank you.